You're watching Lost or Found with Dr. Michelle Choi, the show where we think about how we can live healthier, happier, and more fulfilled lives. Here's your host, Dr. Michelle Choi. Hello, Nisha Sidhu. I'm so excited to have the chance to speak with you. Welcome to Lost or Found.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm so happy to be here with you and to meet you.
Thank you. And, thank you so much for being here. I read about your journey and I find it so fascinating. Would you mind sharing your story?
Sure. So currently, I'm a life coach and meditation teacher. I live outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland. And I'm a mom of two all grown up children. They're 21 and 24 years old. And I guess professionally, my story begins with I was a biomedical engineer. And I did that for a while. And then when I had my first child, I decided to stay at home with him and be a stay at home mom when he was a baby. And I enjoyed that. It was a decision that was actually pretty easy to make because while I liked engineering, I didn't love it. It wasn't something which I wanted, that I looked forward to when I would wake up in the morning. Then my second one came along, my daughter, and when she started preschool, I knew that I wanted to go back to work, but not necessarily engineering. And I had always loved to bake, and it had been a dream of mine to go to culinary school. So when she started preschool, I started culinary school and became a pastry chef, and then specialized in chocolate, became a chocolatier. And then in 2008, I a dream came true, and I opened up my restaurant in Washington D.C., which was chocolate themed. It was a restaurant. We also, along the way, had several retail chocolate boutiques. We were a wholesale chocolate provider to hotels. So it was something which started as a very small project, and it just kind of grew and grew. And it was definitely a labor of love. It was, like I said, it was a dream come true. And I got to do that. And my children were younger, so there were choices that had to be made. My first couple of years, I was there all the time. The kids were little, so I wanted to be there for them when they would come home from school. So I would make sure, I would go in the mornings and then come back when they were home from school, do homework with them, make sure I fed them, and then I would go back to the restaurant. And we were a late night establishment, so I was there till late at night, and that cycle, continued for the first couple of years. And then I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. This was just only a year or two after opening the restaurant, and never had any autoimmune issues in the past. And when it hit pretty strong, and it forced me to. I had no choice because there were days I couldn't get out of the house. It forced me to back away from work and sort of learn to delegate. Back then, I would have considered myself, type A personality, control freak, perfectionist, all the things. And this moment in time really just forced me to back off and let others pretty much take over, at
How
least the
many years
daily
ago were you
operations.
diagnosed?
So I was diagnosed in 2009, 2010. So this was a while ago. Yeah, I had the restaurant it was in downtown DC. I had that restaurant for 10 years. And you know, going through the ulcerative colitis, and then also I was in a very difficult marriage for 22 years. That took a toll on me. I had experienced depression when my daughter was first born, so it started as postpartum, but then morphed into clinical depression. And because of going through these challenges in life, I had sought out therapy, and then later life coaching for myself.
Mhm.
And And it was in closing the restaurant, after 10 years. This was like my 3rd child. It was like my baby. So it was something which could have been very difficult for me. But because I had learned tools like meditation and I had been through life coaching, I was able to apply whatever I had learned to the closing of the restaurant. So what could have been a very difficult time for me, could have taken me down that rabbit hole of depression, really turned into something beautiful, because I was able to. I don't know if I would have been able to put the words to it back then that I can now, but I was really able to be present with what was going on and just absorb all of the stories coming in from people who had been touched by our restaurant, because we were, a chocolate themed restaurant is a special occasion restaurant. So there were, lots of stories coming in when we announced we were closing. We even had, someone fly in from Chicago
Oh,
just to, eat one more time there. And I was just able to really take it all in and feel the gratitude for the moment. And I mean, it was to such a degree that it was almost like closing the restaurant was almost as fulfilling as opening the restaurant.
I think that's so beautiful, and I think that's so profound as well, meaning in how you close the restaurant, because I would imagine it meant so much to you. It was a dream of yours as well too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So when I closed the restaurant, people would ask me, "What are you gonna do next? Are you gonna open another restaurant, something else, in the food industry?" And I said, I really, because I was able to use these tools, the meditation and
Mhm.
gratitude, the life coaching tools, I really want to share this with other people. And so it became this new passion of mine. So I say that chocolate was my first passion, and this was my next passion professionally. And so I took a year to really dive into my meditation practice. I had been already practicing for a while.
Mhm.
So now it's been about 8 or 9 years now since I've been meditating regularly. But I took a year to, study mindfulness meditation, get my teacher certification, and came up and also studied positive psychology and personal growth, and came up with the concept of mind treat, which I opened back in 2018, 2019. And back then it was really about bringing meditation to people who wouldn't necessarily typically. I'm on the East Coast, so it's not as popular as it is on the West Coast. So for me, it was about bringing
And
meditation
it made
to
now
people.
with the pandemic,
Yeah,
how
exactly.
opportune, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But it was more like bringing it to the corporate crowd, and so, like, for example, my office was in a regular office building. We would meditate in conference rooms, and I would train individuals to be able to meditate in real day, everyday life, because so often we learn meditation or we go on these beautiful retreats and we, feel super excited about it, and we get back home and we expect it to be the same, and it's not, because life happens, right? We have distractions, we have our busy schedules. And so it was really about, how do I train people to just make it a daily practice and build it into part of their regular routine. So then the pandemic hit. And actually, even before the pandemic hit, before Maryland went into lockdown, I had been researching about life coaching and how to
Mhm.
become certified. And, you know, the timing just worked out perfectly, because a lot of times, whoever would come to me to learn meditation, it was because they were going through some sort of stress in their lives. And what I found was, in teaching them the meditation, it felt what I thought was coaching back then. So, that's where the interest in life coaching, at least getting certified, came about. And then I decided to do the Jay Shetty certification school and did
Mhm.
that program. And that program was amazing. It still is amazing. The school had just started when I joined, so I was one of the founding students.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and it was such a transformative journey going through that process because it wasn't just about learning how to coach other people, but it was also a lot of the program is about working on yourself
Mhm.
and really going deep and being able to heal, what were some of the past experiences. And through that process, then learning how to empower others, to do the same. So I did the certification, and yeah, that's where I'm at now. I'm a mindful life coach.
How wonderful. I find what you say so interesting because you mentioned that in general, when people are at the point in their lives where they seek meditation, it's like almost as if they need it. And I found your story very interesting because I heard you started meditating with your son initially. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah. So the way I was introduced to meditation was because of my son. So my son is on the autism spectrum, and he's 24 now. When he was in 10th grade, when he was in high school, I had come across an article, and again, keep in mind, like meditation was not popular back then, so it was a little unusual. But I had come across an article that talked about how meditation was helping kids on the spectrum. And
Mhm.
so I started doing some research and I came across transcendental meditation. And at that time, transcendental meditation, it had the most research behind it. And my son is a very logical thinker. He loves science and math and I knew that this wasn't going to be easy. How do I convince him that this could
Mhm.
be something that helped him? So I dug up all the articles and different videos and I showed him the research and I convinced him to do it. But with throughout his life, the path that I've taken was a lot of the times to learn for myself what he was going to be learning so that I could help him along the way. So I decided to learn learn transcendental meditation first. And this was in the middle of having the busy restaurant and dealing with,
Mhm.
the UC and the difficult marriage. And I had no idea how stressed out I was until I started meditating. Those first couple of days, and mind you, everybody's experience is different, but those first couple of days for me, I had felt like I had almost taken a Valium. It was like someone had given me something. I
Wow.
was just so
Mhm.
calm. And now I understand the reasoning behind that is because I had never experienced calm, because I was so stressed out.
How
And
long did
so it
it
was
take
very
for you
black and
to get
white.
to the calm?
Now or back then?
Back then, so I guess when we don't feel calm, like, I mean, we all live such stressful lives. How long did it take for you to feel a little bit of that calm then in your life with the meditation?
I felt it right away.
Wow.
Some people, some clients that I work with, it takes them a little bit longer. For me, I felt it right away, but it was really important. You know, um, I've always been the good student, so it was really important for me to follow the rules. And what my TM teacher had told me was it's twice a day, 20 minutes, no matter what.
Mhm.
And because I was able to keep that up, I felt, I felt it right away. And it was interesting because I saw changes in areas that I hadn't expected. For example, I was procrastinating less, and that was something which nobody had even told me that might happen. With my son, we really didn't expect it, but with him, he learned during the summer. And when he went back to school in the fall, one of his teachers had asked me, is he on a new medication or something? Because he just seems so much more relaxed. His shoulders are more relaxed. He seems to have more clarity. And the really cool thing was he was actually empathizing with other students, which I don't know how familiar you are with high functioning autism, but often they have difficulty reading social cues. And,
Mhm.
although he would relate to family members, he really didn't have any friends. He kind of lived in his own bubble. And the fact that he was actually able to empathize and show care towards other students was huge, and now we know, again, back then I didn't know, and I don't even think the study had come out, but now we know, based on studies where they've actually done brain imaging studies on monks' brains, that they definitely have that higher level of empathy, and the brain imaging studies actually are able to show that.
Yeah, and especially with, like, the hypothalamus, intuition, and connectivity. May I ask you, what did and I find everything you say so fascinating. What did meditation teach you then?
Back then, it was really just a stress reduction technique, and I
Mhm,
think that's because I started with Transcendental Meditation, and the way that they teach is, they almost emphasize to the other extreme that it's not spiritual, it's not a spiritual practice, and so for years, I would say for 5 or 6 years, for me, it was just very simply a stress
mhm,
reduction technique, and it was only until recently, a couple of years ago, that I actually started opening myself up to having it be more, and having it be more spiritual, and having it to be a way that I could connect with whatever, my higher power, the collective
mhm.
consciousness is. And I started noticing, how it would help me open up my intuition as well. When I had done the life coaching, my coach was also, she was a Reiki master, and she was very much into energy. And so she taught me about energy. Prior to that, I didn't even know, like, to me, the energy was the science
Mhm.
piece, and I didn't even understand it. So with the meditation, it definitely brought me to a place where I could actually receive the information.
Oh, interesting. So it almost added to your experience then, knowing the energy work.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Knowing that this was something which existed,
Mhm.
and then being able to actually feel it while I was meditating, that was the connection that needed to be made, which I feel like it's almost like, those first few years, that connection wasn't there because I wasn't open to it.
Yeah, and whenever you meet someone who does meditate a lot, they do exert this, like, inner calm, peace, and joy. I mean, it's like you're right, it's like a a healthy Valium in a way. I mean, you can tell from how their energy feels that they're doing something or that they're actively or they're present. Can I ask you, how important is being in the now, and when do you know that you're in the place of presence?
It's really when I'm not thinking about something that already happened, and I'm not worrying about something that hasn't already happened, right? So sometimes with mindfulness meditation, it's not about clearing the mind. It's not about, getting rid of the thoughts, because that's physically impossible. There's no way to completely clear your mind. And it's something which you can do when you're meditating, is to just observe your thoughts and identify them. It's a fun little meditation game that you can do. It's not the deepest way to meditate, but it is something that's very useful in tuning into whatever your self-talk is, and identifying whatever comes up to your mind. Is that the past or is that the future? And then that becomes sort of a trigger to say, no, present. And then we use an anchor to come back to the present. And that's something which you don't only have to do when you're meditating, right? That's something you can do throughout your day. One of my favorite techniques to use whenever I feel like, I'm just, and it's funny, like how you mentioned that you can tell when people have been meditating for a while that they have this thought. Don't be fooled, because we still get pulled away, and we still get very
Yeah.
emotional when we need to be. But
But you understand your maintenance, like, you
yes,
understand what you need to do to go back in. W
exactly.
when
We
when
have a
many of us
tool.
yeah, when many of us are so distracted or we're so busy that we're, like, all over the place, like, literally and figuratively.
Right, right. Yeah, so one of my favorite techniques to use is to come back to my senses, and this is something you
Mhm.
can do anywhere at any time, is to just notice, like, what am I seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling? And that just, automatically will bring you back to the present. The other technique, which a lot of people talk about, is deep breathing, and specifically breathing, exhaling for longer than you inhale, so that the parasympathetic nervous system is, triggered right away. Um, but yeah, I mean, It's a practice, right? It's not like
Mhm.
once you know it, boom, you're done. Like, life constantly, like, just it throws you these curveballs, and you have to remember to use them. In fact, I had a very fairly recent curveball. If you like, I can share that with you.
Yes.
So I actually most of my 2021 has been difficult in the physical sense. I've been dealing with some consecutive health issues, and in about it's been 4 or 5 months now. I developed a severe case of ocular shingles.
Mhm.
Um, the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. I still have the post herpetic neuralgia, so I'm still having some pain, but it lasted for a while. I, was very sensitive to light. My eye was swollen shut for a week. I about spent almost a month in darkness because I couldn't handle the light. And, I would say the first week or two, I had forgotten everything. I had forgotten all of this, my spiritual practices and everything that I had learned, because in that moment, the pain was just so intense and the disruption to my life was so intense. My life was on hold. There was nothing that I could do about it. Um, and it really took me a good week or two before it was like, hello, Nisha, wake up. You
Mhm.
have these tools, you know what to do. That I then I started to put them into practice. The meditation was very difficult because it was this constant, huge pain. But I could certainly do the deep breathing. I could certainly try to meditate. And then reframing everything into gratitude was huge for me. Reframing, and my body is fighting this into my body is working for me, or this is going into that victim mode of, oh, why is this happening to me? Like, I meditate
Mhm.
every day, right? Like, I do all these things. Why is this happening? And reframing that to, no, this is happening for me, and this is happening for a reason, and maybe this is the universe trying to tell me something that I need to wake up to. So
Interesting. I love how
yeah.
you were saying, you're reframing your reality,
Right,
you know?
exactly.
Like
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important for our well-being to be able to have that capability, because it's our brains are wired to go down the negative path, right? That's something which we can't control. That's just evolution. That goes back to the hunter gatherer, our survival instinct. It's wired for that. So knowing that the tendency is to go to the negative, and then having that awareness and then being able to reframe it is key for our well-being and our joy.
and the fact that we can.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Do you feel better?
I do. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Because I had gone through a health scare when my ulcerative colitis had those years of it being bad, I was able to recognize how different this more recent experience was for me,
Mhm.
and how I was able to just get through it. And then certainly having, that spiritual connection, and having that faith, right? That things were going to be okay.
That,
That's
like,
for sure.
trust.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if meditation is like a cocooning, like, when you meditate, sometimes I wonder when you feel like you're more in the present, it's like you feel loved, you feel secure, you feel trust, you have faith that things are going to be okay, that you're taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a cocooning, so it can be a cocoon in a positive way, it can be a cocoon in a negative way too. Right? So I will share that when we're meditating, we are releasing the feel good chemicals. So
Mhm.
we are releasing dopamine. And sometimes there are people who become addicted to meditation. So on the one hand, it can, but on the other hand, we're also receiving or releasing some of the more productive feel good chemicals like oxytocin. And with oxytocin, I mean, obviously, like, you can just place your hands on your heart and you will release oxytocin, right? So
Mhm.
that's the chemical where we feel the love, we feel the compassion. And so definitely during meditation, it can be that safe space that you go to whenever you need that little boost of love that comes internally. You're not seeking it externally as in form of validation.
What a beautiful thought. I found what you said really interesting, how, you felt ocular shingles, and I know that's really painful. That it happened for a reason. What do you think the reason was for you? If
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I go pretty deep on this because, again, I had been through therapy in the past. I had been through life coaching, and I've been through different challenges in my life. And I feel like during those periods in my time, I had worked on them, but I had really only worked on them surface level. I had never done any deep trauma work, and I've
Mhm,
had a series of traumas, significant traumas throughout my life that I feel needed to be addressed. And it's interesting because with shingles, it's the chickenpox virus, right? It's the virus that we get when we're children that still stays in the body. And then with shingles, I mean, you're the doctor, you can
mhm.
explain it
It
better
lays
than I
dormant,
can.
yeah.
Yeah, it's dormant and then it comes out when we're either under a lot of stress or we're immune compromised. In my situation, I was immune compromised because I was going through an ulcerative colitis flare for 3 months
Mhm.
prior.
Okay.
And so it's interesting, that this is a virus that starts in childhood. And for me, the spiritual connection was I needed to still heal some of those childhood wounds, some of the traumas that I had been through. So I only just recently my pain level has gone down to where I feel comfortable enough to actually do some of that deeper trauma work. And so I've just started working with somebody, a couple of people actually, a therapist who does EMDR. That's the eye movement desensitization that's been shown to be really effective for people with PTSD and other types of
Mhm.
traumas. And also someone who is not only is she a master Reiki healer, but she also does somatic emotional release, which is can be really, really powerful.
Wow, Nisha, you're so courageous. Good for you,
Thank you.
you know?
I feel like I was almost forced into this situation. My personality has always been to absorb
Mhm.
others' energies and absorb whatever is thrown at me and to bury it. And I don't know whether that's genetic or maybe even cultural because I come from a South Asian background, that we don't show our emotions. We carried in being strong is good and being strong means you keep it to yourself,
Yeah,
and
whatever the cost.
exactly, exactly. And that was my life for so many years. And when we do that, it ends up getting stored in the body energetically, and then it ends up manifesting itself, physically. And that's what I believe happened with my ulcerative colitis to a certain extent, and that's what I believe
Mhm.
is has been happening to me now. And I think that it's so important, especially for people, especially like for doctors and nurses and caregivers, to really, because we are constantly, anybody who is working with other people, in the service industry where we are absorbing others' energies, it's really important to have somebody that you talk to so that you can release whatever it is you're going through, whether that's a therapist, whether that's a life coach, or whether that's just a close friend or loved one. But it is just so important to talk it out.
I absolutely agree. I think so many of us are absorbing other people's energy, not necessarily our own. And I think we really need to be aware of that, so that it doesn't affect our own health,
Right. We think,
you
oh, we
know?
can just suck it up and get through it,
Yeah.
and plow through it.
Those are like the worst words I've ever heard. Suck it up. Whenever I hear that, like I cringe inside. I'm like, oh God,
Yeah,
you
yeah, but a
know?
lot of us we've grown up that way, right? To think
Yeah.
that that's the way to do it, but it's
To look
really
strong when it's only
exactly.
looking. you know?
Exactly. It's how am I perceived by the outside world that can just
Yeah.
that, those limiting beliefs can just be so detrimental.
And what if you're really real? Like, what could happen,
Right,
you
right,
know?
exactly. Yeah.
What do you think about this statement from Buddha? I mean, with everything you've been through, I kind of wonder how you feel about it. Buddha said the secret of health for mind and body is not to mourn for the past, not to worry about the future, or to not anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly. With everything you're going through, how does that relate to you?
Yeah, with everything that I've been going through recently, it absolutely relates because it wasn't when I was feeling the pain and when I am feeling the pain, it's not about trying to get rid of the pain. It's about really being present with it. And, this is a little embarrassing, but I'll share with you that I would talk to my nerves. I would
Mhm.
treat them like little children and I would think of it like they're like little kids asking for attention. So whenever they would fire, whenever the pain would start, I would say to them, like, I hear you. It's okay. I hear you. I know you're trying to protect me, but guess what? I'm okay. There's nothing to protect. You're just a little confused right now. And so I really believe that it is about being present with whatever, whether it's physical pain, whether it's emotional pain, whatever the emotions are, it's important to just not, try to numb the pain or numb the emotions, but to really just be present with them because
Mhm.
they're like little signals, whether it's good or bad. They are little signals, and little hints that something needs to change or something needs to be done or something needs to be processed. And when you can use them in that way, rather than worrying about them, um, life just becomes so much more joyful. And, most of the time when we are feeling physical pain or emotional pain, we do jump to the distractions and to the numbing and that just and I'm not saying that there isn't a time or place for distractions because there is, but it's how are we managing them? So are we letting them sweep us away or are we saying, "Okay, well, I need a break right now. I'm gonna watch TV for an hour." I'm gonna watch something funny that's gonna make me
Mhm.
forget about what's going on right now, this pain. And that's okay. That's okay too. It's not that we should never do them, but they just should be healthier distractions, really.
Yeah. That's so fascinating because I think with pain, sometimes when pain occurs, we listen to the louder message of pain instead of the deeper meaning of why that pain is there. And I wonder if like we're really present in the present, if we can really honor the past and the future that way, if that's a better way when we're really in the present.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because there's also, I'll give the example of like when you stub your toe, right? You stub
Mhm.
your toe, and where does the mind go? The pain is there. Yes, it's very painful. Yet the mind starts racing and starts thinking, "Oh my gosh, did I break my foot? Oh my gosh, do need to see a doctor? Oh my gosh, when is this pain going to stop?" Like the mind starts spiraling out of control, and that actually ends up increasing whatever our impression of the pain is. But if we're able to be present and allow the pain without any judgment, and this is something which mindfulness teaches us also, is when we're able to just do that without any judgment, the pain subsides. So if you've ever noticed when you stub your toe, all of a sudden the pain is gone, and whereas it's all those other surrounding thoughts that can make the pain linger and increase.
When you talk to your pain like it's one of your children, did it make you feel better?
It did, it did. I can't say that like it was an instant fix or something
Mhm.
like that, like it completely went away, but it just made the pain more manageable and it made it easier to handle. Instead of going to a place of, "Oh my gosh, do I need to take another medicine or do I need to call the
Mhm.
doctor right away?" Because then that just would create anxiety. And I will share that I during this period, it has triggered anxiety, some health anxiety in me. But also, again, having these tools and knowing how to manage them has been huge to managing the anxiety.
Or even, like, knowing your feelings and your thoughts, how you can affect your reality that way.
Right,
by knowing
exactly,
that, you know?
exactly.
Um, do you think so I read that, when the spirit is grounded and present in the body, that's when we are our true and full selves. I wonder if that's really the case, if when we're in our bodies and we're present, then, like, what can't we do? It just seems like the fuller self, like all of
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we're present in our body, we go beyond the body, right? So we're not
Mhm,
only present to ourselves, but we're present energetically to, because the physical form is very limited, right? But the energetic form is huge, it's vast. And then we tap into this connection with all living beings on our planet that can really be just, it's just such a beautiful feeling.
can I ask you, when you meditate, do you have a sacred place?
Um, I have I have different places that, I favor. I don't have a specific place that I
Mhm,
always meditate in, and this is something which I teach my students too, is to play around with different areas in your home. And that may change. You may go through a phase where you like one particular area and another. But one of my favorite spots is really these days is outdoors, is to
mhm,
meditate outside. So my morning meditation, that's what I do. I'm blessed enough to have a beautiful deck outside my room, so I sit out there and I meditate in the mornings. My afternoon meditation, I'm actually right next to it. I have a beautiful couch, and directly opposite the couch, I have things that have special meanings to me, whether they're different sayings or whether they're different objects. And a fun thing which I love to do is when I first open my eyes after meditating is to see which direction I'm looking at, and I take
mhm.
that as a cue. It could be something as simple as "let that shit go." I mean, I'd have a sign in front of me that says that, or it could be like a beautiful heart that my daughter had given me when she was
Truth.
little. Yeah, yeah.
This may sound silly, but where do you go in your head when you meditate? Is there a certain place, or where are you?
Every time I sit to meditate, the thousands of times that it's a different experience. There are days when I have my thoughts are all over the place, and then there are
Mhm,
days when it's very deep. And one of the things which I share with my students too is to recognize whether you have a thought-filled meditation or you have a deep meditation, both are equally beneficial when we are trying to build a regular practice. Because otherwise, if we end up judging our meditations as being really good or really bad, if we hold on to
mhm,
that feeling of, oh, I call it the bliss field when I'm in that deep state. If I hold on to, oh, I need to reach that bliss state, I'm not able to let go. And the whole
mhm.
point of meditating is to be able to let go and to just be present.
Just
So
do it.
exactly, exactly, to just do it, whatever the experience is,
Mhm,
if your mind is racing, that's okay. The main thing is that you sat there and, rather the thoughts are opportunities. If we didn't have the thoughts, we would never build our muscle for returning back to the present, or
mhm.
returning to whatever anchor we're using. Without the thoughts, it's kind of like almost like you need the negative in order to appreciate the positive. So
It's
it's
true.
yeah.
I think in order to really appreciate the positive, sometimes the negative helps?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I can't tell you, yeah, how much I appreciate now waking up in the morning, and if it's a morning where I don't have any pain, I would never have that level of appreciation before, and being able to appreciate my body and what it's been able to do and how it's been able to heal and recover. I never would have had that appreciation before.
Yeah, I think even though it would feel great for love to exist all the time, I think we learn more when love is not always there, as painful as that is.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm a huge believer in growth mindset,
Mhm,
and in order to build any sort of resiliency, we have to go through challenges, and sometimes it's hard to grapple with, like again, we go into the victim mode of why is this happening to me, as
mhm,
opposed to this is happening for me for a reason in order to help me grow.
yeah, and that
Yeah,
latter thinking is so much more empowering,
exactly. Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know? When you meditate, do you ever ask questions? Have you ever heard answers? Or do you see answers in
Mhm.
your life?
Yeah, sometimes I get the answer before I even ask the question, which is cool. It's like you don't even realize that you had this question, but yet you hear the answer and then you're like, "Oh, that's really neat." You know, so there are different ways that I meditate, and one of the things that I do is at the end of whatever the time period is, whether it's 20 minutes or longer, is I go through my day, or the previous day, if it's a morning meditation, just finding all the different things or people that I'm grateful for. So I literally scan through my day, and then if there's something which I'm just wondering, I'll ask the question. And sometimes it won't be very clear. It might just be something visual. Sometimes it
Mhm,
might even be a past memory that is
mhm,
something indicative of what the answer is. So it's fun to play around with, but I don't take it too seriously. All this stuff. I think that life is it's not about being serious. It's about having fun, and when we do take things serious, that's when, like, the control
mhm.
issues come into place. So
Yeah.
it's
I
just
like how you
being with life.
explain that. It's like the fluidity of knowledge and, information, you know?
Right,
Like
exactly.
it flows and you can
Right.
take what you need, but it's there.
Right, exactly, and having the faith that it's coming to you for a reason, right? So a
Mhm.
lot of times the universe will send us messages and we're not ready to hear them. So what happens is the universe just gets louder and louder with its messages until it is the right moment for us to be able to receive them.
Yeah. I think knowing how important being in the present is for our health and well-being, it concerns me that many of us are like not living in the present. Like most of us, I believe, are not living in the present. We're like out of the present. Like how many of us are so busy, we're so worried, we're so distracted, we overanalyze or we feel fear, anxiety, or even depression.
Yeah, but again, like, that's part of being human too.
Mhm.
Like, it's impossible for anybody unless, you're sitting up on a mountaintop completely isolated from society. It's impossible to always be in the present moment. So
Mhm.
again, there's so much more awareness now than there was even as little as 5 years ago, around being mindful in our lives and about the importance of being present. So it's just reminding yourself to have self-compassion and to understand that these tools are here, and once you learn the tools, you have them for life. Right. So that's why I love to teach meditation to young adults and to children also, because even if they're not ready to fully embrace it right now, they've learned the technique. So whenever they need it and later in life, they have it.
I find that to be a really compelling thought, Nisha, because basically I feel like you're saying it's meant to be experienced. It's not meant to be ignored, but it's meant to be experienced so that we can all find our answers, whatever they are.
Exactly. Yeah, because we're all different, right? We all
Mhm.
have different answers. We all have different questions. We all have different journeys. So it is really important to think of it that way.
When I was reading about meditation, like in preparation for this interview, I came upon the idea of entanglement, and I'm not a quantum physicist, but the idea is that two microscopic particles can instantaneously affect each other at a distance. And physicists believe that entanglement exists everywhere, all the time, even in the larger world that we live in. And I bring this up because this kind of suggests that particles can also be entangled across time, bringing up the idea that the future can affect the past. And what if, like, meditation is healing not just for the now, but if there's another aspect for our past as well?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. I do believe it. I do believe in manifestation, and that is something which until you experience it, it is difficult to believe in. And this is where, science meets spirituality. And for people like I myself for so many years was just science, 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 and didn't understand the crossover with spirituality. But it's true. I mean, in terms of energy, and like with my coaching clients, we've seen this over and over again. When we start to make certain improvements in one area of our life, other things just magically fall into place,
Mhm.
because there is that energetic impact. So it's not just with specific molecules or substances where we see this, but we see this on a much broader spectrum as well with life in general.
Yeah, I find it so fascinating because if you think of it like as if every moment in our time, if time, goes beyond, but if you pull on the string and every like moment is connected by a string, then if we pull on that string in at this moment, it can affect how that string is pulled in the past and possibly the future. I mean, we can have impact by helping ourselves now.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and that's why, earlier when we talked about doing deep trauma work and healing the inner child, that's why it is so important because whatever whatever our memories are, it's how the brain or the subconscious has stored them, right? So by working on yourself in the present, you can heal the past.
Mhm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you feel like your life flows more easily and effortlessly since you've meditated?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Since I've meditated, but I think more so since I've made the spiritual connection.
Mhm.
Definitely, again, like in the beginning, it was just a stress reduction technique. It made life easier to handle. Not easy, but easier to handle. But when I was able to make the spiritual connection, that's when I really felt the flow. And I'm a work in progress. Like it's definitely letting go has been a journey for me, and letting go in all different areas of my life, and it's something which I'm constantly having to work on, just like with the meditation being a practice. Letting go and letting life just sort of flow, it's a constant practice as well.
Do you think meditation, for most people, do you think meditation eventually leads to greater spirituality?
It can if you're open to it. I don't think that it's sort of like a prerequisite. Some people open up to spirituality in other ways. They may connect with nature. They may connect with other people. It's not necessarily that they need meditation to do that, but most certainly meditation can be whatever the catalyst is that you need to reach that place.
Mhm. Or like what you said before, you were saying initially when you started practicing transcendental meditation, for you, it was for stressfully for many, many years
Right, right,
before you decide to expand it. And we can control, I guess, perhaps what meditation can mean in all of our lives or what we
right.
need.
Yeah, exactly, and that may change, right? Depending on whatever phase of life you're in or what experiences you're going through. It may be one thing today, it may be something totally different, next year.
This may sound a little silly, but I love the meaning of namaste. The light within me honors the light within you.
Yeah, yeah, it's
It's so
beautiful.
beautiful, like, our energies or how we're much more than what we think we are,
Mhm. Yeah, I love
and that
that.
we're connected possibly.
Right, right, absolutely.
Nisha, thank you so much for such a amazing and beautiful conversation. How can people find
Oh,
you?
thank you, thank you. I am at Mindtreat on social media, so on Facebook and Instagram, and it's Mindtreat spelled with a Y, so it's Myndtreat. And I have my website. People can sign up for meditation training. It's a 2-day training. When you're ready to, make it a regular daily practice, come find me. It's a 2-day training, about an hour to an hour and a half each. And then we do about 1 month of check ins. And then I have life coaching programs where I work more longer term. I have 2 months and then 6 month packages. And then I also want to mention I have a free meditation group that I do every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. You don't need to register or anything. You just hop on the Zoom link. It's a small group. It's something I started when the pandemic started, and I've just continued it because it's been a great way for everybody to bond. And all my sessions right now are via Zoom, so all of my sessions are virtual. So it's really cool. I get to work with people all over the world and in different countries and stuff. But my website is mindtreat.com, myndtreat.com.
And thank you for your beautiful contribution to our world.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Thank you. And I can say the same about you. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing.
Thanks for watching Lost or Found. Are you looking for a unique perspective to help you gain insight into your health and well-being? Schedule a virtual wellness visit with Dr. Michelle Choi by going to our website, drlostorfound.com, to schedule an appointment. Please subscribe and follow Dr. Michelle Choi on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.